Hey everybody, hope y'all are doing alright. As you can see, my hair's it's getting longer, it's growing. But I just got back from work, which ended up being an extremely short shift because well, the particular company I'm at, they're pretty adamant about having the right documentation, which all companies should be. But for whatever reason, the past couple of companies I've worked for, I haven't had to have a birth certificate or a social security card. So, because I don't know where those two things are, they weren't able to, I wasn't able to clock in today. Yesterday, I brought an identification card, which I got in Arizona, and I've got my license too. So I was hoping that those two pieces of identification would be sufficient, but they weren't. So I showed up today, and so my general manager told me, and I spent a good hour at the store, trying to get, because as long as they can get like a receipt or something saying that I've put in the work to get my replacement social security card or birth certificate, that would be sufficient for me to start working. So I attempted to get that going in the store, and it just didn't work. So I came home. I can't clock in until I get the work done. So what I've now come to is I call the Social Security office, and I was going to set up an appointment, but they don't do appointments here in Oregon, so I just need to show up. The best time to do it, is just, show up bright and early, be there at 9 o'clock when they open, and, I will get that done, and they can give me a form that will tell my work that I've done all that I can do to get my social security card and that it's coming. And my work told me that that should be enough to get me back to working. So, kind of a bummer, but it is what it is, I've been putting off getting my social security card and birth certificate for a while, and a lot of that's because I've worked multiple jobs and they just haven't required it. Me knowing my number has been enough. And then I think I don't know, I don't know if they just let that shit slide or they weren't concerned about it or what, but for whatever reason, it's just not cutting it these days. So, or at least with this particular company. So anyways, that's a little update on that front. But I also just wanted to make a video and talk a little bit more about this agenda that we're all, in my opinion, everybody is dealing with right now and is going to continue to have to deal with. And it's going to continue to get, it's just they're at later stages of their agenda. So things are going to continue to manifest in a particular way that is going to be, they're trying to create chaos. So in my opinion, we're going to continue to see more of these sicknesses, more of these shootings, presumably, because, and I wanted to speak on, maybe I'll make I want to speak on the shooting because it's something that is very devastating. This was an elementary school that got shot up too. And a lot of people died. It's, in order to really try to figure out how to solve these problems, again, you got to first be able to figure out what the problem actually is beyond the obvious factors, like, the obvious factors are it's a dude with a gun with, violent intentions inside of himself and probably all sorts of traumas and emotional pains that he hasn't dealt with or doesn't know how to deal with or never had anybody to really try to help him out with it, or even anybody to talk to. I have no idea. I haven't even looked into this guy or what his name is or what type of life he lived or who his parents are or what type of influences he grew up with. But these are all really important questions. And patterns are a big thing in life. And I have a feeling that if we were to look back at all these different school shooters and, examine their lives and the type of lives that they live and the lifestyle choices that they make, down to the music they listen to, the type of foods that they eat, the movies they liked, the interactions they had with friends. All of these things are very, very key components to unraveling who this individual was and why was his situation in this world so bad that he had to go and do what he did. As I've shared with this channel, and I know I just got a bunch of new subscribers, thank you, by the way, but so a lot of you guys haven't heard this from me, but I've mentioned this a few times on my channel that especially as a younger man, when I was in high school, I wasn't even a man yet, but in high school, I had very, very, very destructive thoughts. There's times when I would walk through the halls of my school and, just this very violent desires and thoughts would come at me, and for a while there, I entertained them, I'm not saying that's a good thing to do at all. I don't think that's good, and I do think if you are having those type of thoughts that you should seek someone to speak with about them. I'm not a proponent for the modern medical system, and I don't think the whole psychologist and the way that we go about dealing with mental sickness is, in my opinion, misguided. And I've had my own experiences which have proven to me that, and my mother has also had experiences that, in my opinion, prove that as well. Multiple times she would leave, because she used to see a shrink, like a couple times a week, like very often. The same dude for years, also, to the point to where there was a time when the whole family went in for a shrink session, and that was years ago. So anyway, she was seeing a dude for quite a few years. And I was always kind of on the fence about it because, again, it goes back to what your friends and family are here for. I think these shrinks and these psychologists, by being where they are at that place, it takes away a person's need to speak about things to their friends and family. So it's like, if you have an outlet where you can go and share all these intimate things with a human being, then that desire to do so isn't going to be as strong. And so you're not going to feel as compelled to speak about these things with your friends and your family if you know that you have an alternative outlet. I'm not saying that's how it is for everybody. I'm just saying, from my perception, I could see how when people have these things, when they get these things, these shrinks, it can take away from their desire to want to open up to their friends and their family, which I don't think is healthy. And again, to bring up examples, when my mother, the person that she saw, there were multiple times when she would get out of her appointment, like right when she would be done with her appointment, because she still wasn't in the most emotional. See, that's the thing about these psychologists, like they run on times, okay? So it's a set time that you have to speak. Once your time is over, it's over. Doesn't matter what stage of the conversation you're in, doesn't matter where you are emotionally, when that timer hits zero, you got to go. And the problem with that is, and the problem that happened with my mom was that she would get into these sessions and have this very intimate dialogue with this person, and she'd be unloading all these really, really intimate things in her life to this person. And in the midst of that, or while she's still going through unraveling these things to somebody who, we should be telling these things to people we trust. So, you develop this trust with your shrink, but because he's working for money and he has these set appointments that have to be done at a certain time, if somebody's in the middle of a very pivotal, unloading of their emotional state, and all of a sudden they got to leave, like you're sending that person back out into the crazy world, right in the middle of them expressing their craziness, right in the middle of them being vulnerable, right in the middle of them really needing more help than ever. And, you're sending them out, you're telling them they got to leave, So I think mentally, physically, and emotionally, it fucks with the head. When you just, cut somebody off and be like, okay, we're done for today. And it's like, we're done for today. I just got going. Like, this is extremely helpful to me. And, you know, I don't have anybody else to do this with because I've developed this relationship with you. So I'm relying on you solely for these type of interactions and for this type of communication. And then we get into the meat of what's really going on. You tell me I got to leave and stop talking about it because time's out. And so a lot of the times my mother, you know, literally within minutes of leaving her shrink's office, she would take a whole handful of her Oxycontin and swallow them. Try to kill herself. This happened on multiple occasions. She would try to kill herself right after seeing her shrink, you know, and then she would, you know, thank goodness she would call her shrink or I think us, one or the other, and let us know, like, hey, I just took 40 Oxycontin, you know, I'm trying to kill myself, essentially. And, you know, we would get her taken care of and call the ambulance, take her to the hospital, and you know, go through all that. But, you know, it's just a pattern. Again, going back to patterns, like that was a pattern that kept on reoccurring. Is right after my mother would get done speaking with shrinks, she would try to kill herself. You know, so there's something in this equation that's not adding up in the most healthy manner. And again, it goes back to everything that I just talked about. I think it's because these people, they have a set time to do these things in. And once that time's over, the session is over. No matter what state the patient is in, they got to move on, even if they're not ready to move on. So if you're having that conversation with a friend or family, obviously there wouldn't be the same type of time constraints, and one would be able to sit there and listen and be there for that person until they reached a spot in their flow that seemed healthy and well enough for them to move on. But again, because it goes back to, you know, these fucking rules and regulations and ways of doing things, which goes back into the money and this and that, you know, that's just not the way it works in these psychological rings. And, you know, myself, the one shrink that I saw, you know, one of the first things he told me was that I could trust him and that he would always be there. And so I unloaded everything, man. I shared with him everything, just tons of stuff. And it got to the point where I shared so much with him, he couldn't quite identify exactly what was going on with me. So he tried hypnosis on me. And I agreed to it. So he did the whole put me under thing, you know, count down to 15 or whatever it was. And I went under, man. I went into another plane of existence. So much so that I don't even remember anything until he told me to come back. And when he told me to come back, I don't know what happened, but I somehow scared him. I scared the shit out of him. Like I came back and everything was kind of red. Like I had a very malevolent vibe about myself. I remember that. I remember my perception being very kind of red and angry and not healthy at all. And like I said, when I opened my eyes, I have this red type perception going on. And I remember looking at my shrink, and he was very much like standing far, you know, standing away from me. We were in a small room, and he was kind of like, I think, behind his desk, like, you know, his body posture was extremely nervous, and he seemed afraid. He seemed like he was frightened for his life. So I don't know what I said to him or what I did or what I revealed in that hypnosis session, but whatever it was, it left quite an impact because he never saw me again. He sent me a letter telling me that he can't see me anymore and that I should try speaking to somebody else. So, you know, that's just another point. Like, this guy, you know, he tells me, hey, I'll always be there for you and you can tell me anything. So it's like, okay, so I do those things thinking that he's always going to be there and I can tell him anything. And then, you know, then he tells me he's never going to be there again. So just that does something to the psyche. Does something to the psyche. So ever since that experience, I do not believe in the whole nature of the shrinks and the operation and the way they go about doing things. In my life and in my mother's life, I have not witnessed them to do anything really, like I said, really good, you know. And, you know, like I said, it didn't really help my mom either. The one thing that did help my mom though was going to church. I'm just being real, and beyond, I mean, I know a lot of people have religious stigma about going to church and the type of church you go to and all this and that. But I think for my mother especially, because she's not like super fanatically religious at all, really. So she goes to a non-denominational church, which is a church that's just open to all different types of denominations. But I think just the social engagement is what I think really was therapeutic for my mother, was just knowing that she could go to a place and there'd be other people there with a similar like mind that she was able to connect with, that she was able to talk with, that she was able to even, like, if she really needed to, places like that, you're going to find somebody, hopefully, that would really want to listen to you, yeah. And once she got into going to church, she hasn't had an episode of wanting to kill herself since then. So hallelujah, that's beautiful. So yeah, for me, like, just the whole, way that we go about dealing with mental sickness and, disease and all these other different things, is extremely flawed. And there's a much healthier and better way to do things. And this is also a part of what I want to help, share with the world, is a different way of dealing with trauma. And helping to find a way to transmutate that trauma into more love, into something that's healthier for the individual and for the rest of the society. So yeah, but I think I'm gonna make another video more focused on the specifics of the shooting problem we have here, and address that, because like I said, I've had very intimate, I've had thoughts of a similar type of nature. Long ago, like when I was in high school, yeah, I've had the thoughts of wanting to, really hurt my peers, essentially, the people around me in the schools. So, it's a subject that to me is very, it is what it is, man. It's just something I can relate to. So anyways, I'll drop that sometime soon, all right? I love you guys. Y'all take care, all right? Bye.